Hi, welcome to the Gear Garage. My name is Zach, and this is my little show about whitewater things. And today I want to talk about river signals and river communication and sort of a base set of communication signals we can use to communicate. And what happens on the river is the river's loud, we're long distances, so you can't just say words. I can't just say, like, go over there, or there's a hurt person there. We have to develop signals we use to communicate non-verbally. And that's both with whistles and with some hand signals. And that's what I want to talk about today. Before I do, please know that there's not like one standard set. This is what I believe is a good standard set and what I'm generally using on the river here in the west coast of the US. But different geographies use different signals, different rafting companies use signals, different international groups. The International Rafting Federation has different signals than these that they suggest. So you can't make an assumption people always have the same signals. So if you're boating with a new group, it's good to go over your signals. Or if you're on the river and you see another group, you can't assume they know this exact same set, or if you use a different set, whatever you're using. So with that disclaimer, let's get started. First, I want to talk about whistles. And in my opinion, whistles are used for just emergencies, just things that when things are kind of bad. And a lot of times if people see a swimmer, they immediately blow a whistle. And I personally think that's very wrong. Right? If we all see the swimmer, there's no reason to blow the whistle. A whistle is used to get attention to the person blowing it. So if I'm in some sort of emergency, I know how to signal everybody what's going on. I'll use a whistle to get attention. I'll expect all eyes on me so I can then signal out what's happening. I can point to something like, hey, that's happening over there. Look out for that swimmer, that kind of thing. But a whistle's meant to get attention to the person blowing it. It's not just like, hey, something's wrong, blow a whistle. And I don't like whistles being blown on the river because they make me nervous. When I hear it, it makes me freak out a little bit. If I'm looking at a swimmer, for example, and I'm dealing with something and somebody blows a whistle, I'm going to turn my head to that person blowing it, right? And my adrenaline's going to go up. I may have had this handled, but blowing the whistle might divert my attention from the problem. So I just ask that don't use it too much and recognize that you're blowing the whistle to get attention. The other signal I use is 3 whistle blasts. Like whistle, 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 break, whistle, whistle, whistle. That means severe emergency. That means somebody could be dying. That doesn't just mean like a boat's wrapped, right? Like we can usually all see that. That means like, hey, we need to make very quick action to help with something. So with whistles, 1 is just attention, pay attention to me. 3 blasts in a row is like, hey, something serious is happening, very serious. In terms of whistles, this is the classic Fox 40 classic whistle. That's pretty good. And they now have the Fox 40 Sonic Blast, which is a little bit louder. So I checked this one out. I'll put a link down in the show notes to where you can buy it on Amazon. I get a few bucks if you do. But to me, this is the coolest one. It has like a rubberized tooth guard. It's pretty cool. Anyway, let's move on to hand signals. And to me, there's like 4 basic things we all should know. These are kind of the classic ones. The first one is just tapping your head like this. And that's generally asking a question, are you okay? So if somebody maybe got messed up, I'll do this to them, say, are you okay? And their response, if they're okay, is this back, right? So it's the question and the response. If they're not okay, they do anything other than that. So if you do this to somebody and they just look at you funny, that probably means they're not okay. But this also gets used for like, are you ready? Somebody like, are you ready? And somebody's like, yeah, I'm ready. So it can get used for a lot of things. Or if I give somebody a signal, they might do this back just to say, hey, I heard the signal, like affirmative, I got it. So this could also mean affirmative. It's generally like the question, are you okay? And the answer, I'm okay, but it has a lot of subtle other meanings. Next is eddy out. And so this is just the general thing for eddy out. Everybody, look back. This means catch an eddy. You could also do this and point to an eddy. So say, I want everybody to eddy out, and there in particular. So that's eddy out. Stop is a tough one. And there's not general agreement on stop. And so this is what I think. If I'm up close and casual, to me, this is stop. I use this when I'm trailer backing. I use this in regular life. Like this could be like, hey, stop, same thing, but stop. If I'm far away, arms outstretched to me, that would mean stop. Maybe a medium distance, this. I use this for stop, but some people use this for first aid. So that might get confusing. But it depends on the context, right? If I'm sitting on a boat or I'm sitting in a particular spot and I do this, it's pretty obvious we don't need first aid. That probably means stop. So again, for me, it's arms out. It could be a paddle out like this too. That could be stop. It could be this. It could be that. It's a number of things. And also, Don't forget eddy out is stop as well. It's just like eddy out's like catch and eddy. It's kind of the same thing as stop. And finally, we talk about pointing positive. We point where we want people to go. Like I'm not gonna point people down into an alligator pit or like some super nasty sieve. I'm gonna point where I want people to go. And so you just go over here, go over there. And if you're far away, you can use your paddle, to extend and say go over there and go over there. So that's pointing positive. If it's down the middle, this is down the middle, but this also kind of means you can go anywhere. So this one, context is important. Like some people say, hey, this is just like right down the middle. That's go this way. This is go that way. But some people say like this is just like, let's go. So that one's a little bit confusing with context, but we definitely point positive. And if I want somebody to go far right or it's super important they go right, and this is my right, not your right, I'll do this. Like, hey, get over there. Or hey, get over there. Or like, go over there. So the more, like this is casual, go this way. And then there's like, hey, get over there based on how much emphasis you get it. So to me, those are like the core ones everybody should know. Again, it's like, are you okay? Yes, I'm okay. Eddy out and do that. Stop, which is this, or maybe, what's the other one? Oh, maybe this if you want to do that. And then pointing positive, pointing where they want to go. And to me, those signals will do a lot for you. That'll cover most things. But there are some secondary hand signals, some ones that I use, but I don't use everybody because they're not common to everybody. But these are the ones that I like. And the first one is lost equipment. I'll hold a paddle up and do this. To me, that's lost equipment. Or I might just put my hands up and do this. To me, that's like something's in the river, look for something in the river. It's usually a paddle when I do it. When I do this, it's probably a paddle. Next is need first aid. Again, that's this one, potentially. Like if I'm with somebody and they're maybe hurt and I do this to somebody, hopefully they understand based on the context, that's need first aid. But that's pretty much your only signal for that. Another one is flip, which I just do this. So if I see somebody, I'm just gonna do flip. Swimmer, this is pretty much, like if people see this, I'll say swimmer. Wrap, I'll do that. Be like, hey, so there's a wrap. And then let's scout this, I'll do this. So if I'm above a rapid and it looks pretty nasty, if I do that, that means scout. I'll usually do scout. Let's eddy out over there. We're gonna scout this rapid. So those are the big things in terms of like the secondary signals. There's a whole bunch more. And if you have more or like you want to add some, please do. But those are what I think are a good secondary set. But a couple things with transmitting signals. First of all, it's really good to get some positive affirmation. So if I was to say, let's scout that, it's really nice if somebody goes, cool. Or like nods their head, yeah. Or, hey, I heard you. And so just giving the signal is not enough. You need to give the signal and wait for some sort of positive affirmation. You need to make sure the communication happened and they understand. And so I would definitely a lot of times wait for just like a head nod. If you get to know your boaters, the people you boat with really well, like you're comfortable with them, it's a very quick signal. You're like lost stuff and like, oh yeah, I got it. I'll go get it. Like, you can tell by their body language, their head nodding or some sort of, hey, I heard you. I'm on that. And finally, if you're in a row of boats, and this is more rafting than kayaking, but it's also kayaking, you need to pass a signal back. So if the lead boat is like, hey, we're going over here, like the lead boat can't just do this and not look back. You need to do this, look back, look for some sort of affirmation, and make sure that signal got passed. So the second boat has a responsibility to say, hey, I heard you, and pass it back to the third. And the third boat, same thing. Like acknowledge the signal and then send the signal back. So the lead boat will send this and everybody is responsible for making sure the person behind them has sent it back. If you're the third boat and you do this and the fourth boat just sits there with their hands in their pockets or just rowing and not responding, I would probably eddy out. I'd be like, hey, did you get the signal? And sometimes maybe they didn't. Or like, yeah, I got the signal. And then they'll be like, yeah, I got the signal. And they'll be like, hey, why didn't you pass that back? And like, oh yeah, I should have passed that back. Because the information matters to people behind them. So again, like with transmitting signals, I would look for some sort of positive affirmation that the signal, that when you give it, that it's been received and understood. And there's also an important thing to propagate that signal back in the group of boaters or on a rescue scene, right? Like if you see something like a swimmer and hey, swimmer, and I look back, I want to make sure they acknowledge it, but I want to make sure they're passing it to everybody so we can handle whatever happens. Everybody knows kind of what's going on. So that's a lot of information I went over pretty quickly. If you have anything to add, please add it. These videos are always meant to be a discussion, and you may have some signal you think is critical. Like, let me know, add it in. And so that I can see it, I can learn, but also people watching this video can look in the comments and be like, oh, that's a really good idea. I'm gonna have to try that. But I just wanna close with saying, it's just super important that the people you boat with have a common understanding about the signals. And so whatever you choose to use, having some sort of discussion about them and understanding before you boat is helpful, so there's not some sort of miscommunication. So with that, I'm gonna say goodbye this time and see you in the next episode. Thanks.